The ancient cultures had the key to unlocking our DNA. And even in today's time, we have been shut off from so many aspects of who we used to be because there are so many things that go into the human body, and merging the spirit with the body and incarnating into this life. But the ancients had the knowledge of how to not only carry that wisdom with them into the next life, but to not get stuck in the cycle that we've been stuck in for hundreds and thousands of years. So do you want to know how to break that cycle? Activate your consciousness DNA fire codes that will break you free from the seals that have bound you to so many lifetimes of repeating the same cycles. Do you want to know how to step into that for yourself? How to not only do that for yourself, but to step in and be a lighthouse for other people to break that? Do you wish to shift and transform your life in the most beautiful and magnificent ways possible? To truly step in and shine and be you. Because when we can step into that and let go of all the layers that we are constantly carrying with us, it's like we're freed from that cage. It's like we have these layers and layers and layers protecting us from the core of who we truly are. If you stick with me here, I will teach you and show you, from what I have learned, how the ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and the Neteru and the Druids and so many others have been able to step in and use the symbols and use these various tools in order to activate themselves and their entire civilization. Hi, my name is Cody, and I help people to activate their divine consciousness codes that will ignite their heart ablaze and open the door to limitless possibilities. Throughout our time here on this planet, there have been so many iterations and so many recreations of the human race and how we have evolved, and there's a lot of speculation as to the evolution of how we actually got here and where we are at now, which brings me back to being able to shift out of the state of consciousness that we've been in by activating the parts of our DNA. Because our DNA not only carries with it the imprint of our physical genetic ancestral line, but it also carries with it the essence of our soul and our spirit and the lifetimes that we have lived in the past. And maybe you don't believe in other lifetimes, and that's totally okay, because we are all on our own path. And from my own experiences, I have physically actually seen and experienced the past life regression randomly. Honestly, it wasn't like during a meditation, during a yoga ceremony, dancing under the moon. I actually experienced it when I was thinking about somebody that I had this connection with, and I would call her, the first time that I met her, actually, I was joking around and said, maybe you were my mom in a past life or something. Something jokingly like that. And after I said that, she really took to it, and she really started to connect with me. And I had this vision as I was driving of being in Egypt. And the vision that I got was that I was... in that past life, I was, I guess, this like prince, and I was like a 5-year-old kid, probably younger than that. I just remember like seeing the walls and seeing the engravings and seeing the people, and I recognized a few people that I know in my life now, but the feeling was so surreal because it wasn't just me seeing this vision, seeing what was happening. It was me feeling it. I was like physically crying, not because I was sad, but it was just like the emotions of this part of me returning just flooded me with all of this this information and these downloads that I'm sure activated parts of my DNA that I didn't have access to before, because this is a part of who I was in another lifetime and part of what connects me to this lifetime, because everything is connected and we shift these timelines. If you think about like a giant painting, okay, there's no beginning and end. I'm not talking about the creation of the painting, like when the painting was actually made. I'm talking about if you look at the painting and it's just a picture, a portrait of a, let's say, a mountain landscape, then you're not going to pinpoint, oh, this is the beginning of the portrait, this is the end, because it's all makes up the whole portrait. Each brushstroke was required in order to create the entirety of that painting. Without each individual brushstroke, the painting would not be complete. So we are like that giant painting, with parts of us and other aspects of ourselves at different parts of the painting. So whenever this came into me, it created this new rush of information, this funnel that I was able to tap into. And when I spoke of this vision to the woman that I saw in there as my mom, the one that had called me mom when I first met her, she started crying because she had had different people tell her that same thing. And it was, I've honestly not had an experience like that since, because it comes in when it needs to. And in order to activate these fire codes within your consciousness, it is important and imperative to really walk the path of your soul, to listen to your heart. Because to say what is right for you is not anybody's business. Only you know that. Everybody's path is different. Everybody's path leads them through different obstacles, through a different series of events and synchronicities and challenges. But what is important here is what you take into these experiences and what you take from those experiences. Because these experiences ultimately mold you into who you become in this life. It's all about the story that we create for ourselves, the story that we tell ourselves. And this is all built on past experiences. These past experiences have molded our previous beliefs, our current beliefs. Our experiences mold our beliefs, which create our reality. So a few of the ancient civilizations that I wanted to really touch on was, first and foremost, the Neteru. So Dr. Robert Gilbert, he has a very interesting and very deeply insightful show on Gaia, on the channel Gaia, which goes into detail about these beings, these Neteru beings, who the ancient Egyptian cultures often portrayed on hieroglyphs and things. The way that we interpreted them in modern society was we called them gods because of how we tried to interpret what the ancients were saying. But from what Dr. Gilbert talks about is they didn't have a word necessarily for God. What they referred to these deities as, these beings, these conscious beings, were Neteru, which or Neter is the singular version, which is basically, it has to do with how this world is made up. So this world is a matrix, and within that matrix, it's a matrix grid, a matrices of possibilities, and a matrices of carbon, which create from light this physical holographic structure. So these Neteru beings had the ability to influence the net, for which governed our reality. And they had the ability to shift and alter the physical world because they understood the laws that govern our physical world. Not just our physical world, but the dimensions that go above it. Because ultimately this world is composed of, from what I understand, there's, I believe, 15 dimensions. here, and we are evolving through each of those, but there's there's so many aspects and layers that go into this. But these Neteru beings, basically, they have access to the same energy that we have access to. The difference is in the planet and the tools that they had, and how everything is structured, and the energy field, and what they were tapping into at that time. I also want to say that the word nature is derived from the Neters, because the Neters were essentially beings of nature. They were like one with nature, in the sense that they understood these laws and had the ability to influence them in a way that we would consider supernatural, or magic, or whatever you would call it, because they understood the laws for which govern that. If you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, some rules are meant to be bent, others broken. And understanding how to govern within that framework gives us the ability to alter our world. But first we have to be able to govern ourselves, and be able to govern that energy within ourselves, which goes back to the different way and the different energy vertices for which compose our physical body, which, in order for us to alter the world around us, we have to understand that it's not just about the physical world itself. It's about our connection to the physical world, because we are not separate from anything in this reality. So once we understand and connect to that part of ourselves within ourselves, and we go back to our center point, then we will begin to have that ability to step out and influence the world around us, because we understand that this world is a part of us. So if we go back to our center point, the center of our dimension, our internal reality, our inner dimension, then we will begin to shift within ourselves and be able to shift outside of ourselves as a result. It's inevitable. As above, so below. I'm sure many of you have heard that quote, which this ties back into what I wanted to speak of, another ancient culture, which is the Druids. The Druids, which were often portrayed through characters such as Gandalf, Dumbledore, and one of the most well-known that those two actually are derived from is the wizard Merlin. So the Druids, they are very interconnected with nature. And I really love the analogy, the story that they have around the creation of life itself and the origins of us. First of all, the word druid comes from the Celtic word druwid, D-R-U-W-I-D. Dru refers to tree. Wid refers to know. Often, the word druid actually means oak men. So the Druids, they were very connected to the trees, and especially oak. Hence the derivation of oak men. So their whole origin story is based around the tree of life, which they call the Axis Mundi. So if you think about a grand forest full of bolstering trees and plants and flowers and all these things, animals, right in the center of that forest is a giant tree towering over all the other trees. This tree of life is the Axis Mundi. This tree is the one for which we all come from. What happens when we start to branch out and spirit comes into this life and comes into the forest, as we start to move to the edge of the forest, which they call the grove's edge, we start to lose that sense of who we are. We start to lose that connection to the tree. Not necessarily lose it, but we get somewhat disconnected from it, because we start to develop this sense of individuality in who we are. And all of these different trees throughout the forest are intertwined at the roots, but they all have a different flavor. They all have a different energy to them. And everything within the forest is unique in its own expression. So every spirit that is birthed through this forest is going to come through a different root system. And with that, every single individual that is born here is going to have a different energy, because we are going to come from a multitude of various different trees. It's an analogy using the forest that they have, but at the root of all, there are so many different aspects that define what it means to be a human, from astrology to, I started recently getting into what's called the gene keys, which has to do with human design. That is based off of the I Ching, which is based on a 64 hexagram life cycle, basically. The I Ching, which is one of the original derivation tools. We have our life path, we have our zodiac symbols, we have our ancestral line, we have our spiritual past lives that we remember, or that we are connected to. There's so many different aspects that go into who we are, that come through this energy through the forest. So the point that I want to get back to is that in order for us to draw strength, true strength, we have to get back to that center point and draw strength from the roots of the core of that tree that makes up who we truly are. As we begin to do this, we'll begin to meet the right people, we'll begin to come into the right circumstances that will help us to unravel those roots, and we will start to step into a new version of ourselves. We'll start to feel that. We'll start to really move in a way that we haven't before, and start to think in a way that we haven't before. You'll start to really see yourself in a different light, but in the best way possible, in a way that is connected to everything and everyone, in a way that is full of love and beauty and magic. Something I want to dive deeper into in the future is diving more into the origins of how we got here and why we've remained stuck for so long. Because we have been in a cycle for hundreds to thousands, maybe even millions of years. And our goal here is to step into this new realm of conscious existence so that we can ascend to new heights, the great ascension. But it's not just all like love and light. It's really stepping into your shadow, really stepping into all parts of yourself, really being able to embrace the beauty and the chaos of what is happening inside of you, and love every aspect of that. I'm not saying to remain in your toxic patterns or tendencies, or allow people into your life that are holding you back. But what I am saying is there are parts of ourselves that we have shut off, that have not only shut us off physically from ourselves, but that also shuts off different parts of our energy bodies. It shuts off different parts of our DNA, our brains. It's like, as we close down the different aspects of ourselves, we close down a multitude of doors that we would have the opportunity to walk through once we open up that part of ourselves. And something I really wanted to touch on in this video, but I've already talked too long as it is. I'll have to talk about it in a future video, is the seals that have been placed on us throughout the history of humankind. Because what has happened here is we have split from our eighth dimensional, so this planet Earth is actually a three-dimensional fragment of the eighth dimensional Gaia. And what we're trying to do now is to shift into the fifth dimensional Terra, which is essentially the main body for which Earth is a fragment of. So it's almost like we are a memory of this other body of consciousness for which we simultaneously reside in. And this world, Terra, for which we are connected to currently, exists in what we would perceive as the future. So we are working backwards in a sense. It's almost like we are diving into the depths of our dreams to work back to heal and repair what has been fragmented at the core. It's like there are aspects of the great tree that have been uprooted, and we are replanting and repotting and learning how to bring those pieces back together to heal those roots so that we can come back together as one whole unified being of consciousness. And the only way that we can move into that is to break out of these chains that have held us down for so long, to break these cycles that have kept us bound, not just in our lives, but our ancestral lines. There's a book that I was reading, and it's really helped open my eyes to how we carry this genetic imprint within our physical ancestral DNA. It talks about how we can repeat patterns from people that we don't even know. This one guy, as soon as he turned 19, he started waking up in this like cold, he was like freezing, ice cold. And for several weeks, he couldn't sleep. He was afraid to fall asleep, and he was just bedridden with shiver. Like he was just constantly being flooded with this energy, this cold energy within him, and he felt like he was going to die. So he was afraid to fall asleep. And what he found out was that his uncle, when he was 19, had actually died from hypothermia of that exact thing. But he didn't even, his nephew didn't even know about what had happened with his uncle. And as soon as he hit the same age that his uncle was when it happened, he started reliving those patterns, which kept him stuck in a cycle that he wasn't even aware of. Once he became aware of what had happened to his uncle, he was able to perceive that within himself and break free from those chains that have kept him trapped. That book, by the way, is It Didn't Start With You. Powerful book for understanding how these things are passed through your family and your physical ancestral lineage. And with that being said, I appreciate each and every single one of you. I love all of you. I'm so grateful to be going on this pilgrimage, this journey with you. We're all on our own hero's journey back to ourselves, to remember who we truly are and to activate that fire within us so we can be that lighthouse for others to shine on the endless sea of possibilities. So if you are interested in learning how to do that in your own life, please feel free to check out. I have some coaching down below if you're interested. And I would love to help you to step into that in your own life, because it's truly magic when you can really step in and shine that light onto the world, not just for yourself, but for everybody around you. It's truly one of the most beautiful experiences to really see and be a part of. Thank you for being here. Take care, my friends. Peace, love, namaste.